Yes, Nigel, thank you for being here. So,
You-
most people today follow a very carbohydrate rich diet and believe that eating fruits and vegetables is absolutely essential for health. So, what led you to question all of these guidelines and actually start a carnivore diet since it goes against what every doctor, all the guidelines tells you to do?
Yeah. The simple answer to that, my big wake up call in terms of health, was what happened in 2020. And because this is going on YouTube, there are certain things that we can't talk about. But basically,
Yeah,
there's various things that I could call it. The Soviet Union is one.
yeah,
Another one
100%. Yeah,
would be the live action role play. The let's play doctors and nurses. So I think we know what we're talking about there.
yeah,
So up until then, my belief was, because I also taught economics for 35 years, I understand that people respond to incentives. So I always thought the medical profession, it was in Britain anyway, it was overly centralized, and GPs, like local doctors, they just basically were set targets by central government and for prescribing certain drugs like statins. So I was aware of the corruption between the pharmaceutical industry and doctors over things like, say, statins. But on balance, I didn't really understand the depth of the corruption. And I was a bit of a normie in the sense that I thought, well, there's bound to be some decent doctors who will blow the whistle on this, and maybe they don't really know, because I had high cholesterol.
mm,
I don't know. I went for like a routine health check about, I don't know, 15 years ago or something, and the doctors there were like trying to get me onto statins. So what then happened was I went home, looked at the side effect profile for the statins, and I just thought, like, no way am I putting these inside my body. But I still kind of trusted them a little bit.
yeah,
But then once this thing happened in 2020, for the first maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I wasn't sure whether it was um, like a totalitarian takeover, or whether this thing that you couldn't
yeah,
see, was
yeah,
real. And then as soon as I actually saw the number of fatalities, even the government statistics, 28 days after the kind of the nonsense, I think I could say, test. I thought this is the totalitarian takeover. And then what happened afterwards was that, the failure of the medical profession to call all of it out. So for me, then my trust in them was completely shattered. So at that point, I began to question a lot more things. So I then remembered there was a GP in Britain called Dr. David Unwin, who was talking about cholesterol and diabetes. Actually, he was talking about, and that diabetes can be reversed through a low carbohydrate diet. I'd watched videos about that before, and I tried to convince my wife about it, but she's a Finn,
mm,
and she was, like all Finns, they've been taught about the food plate.
yeah,
And a mum and dad are they're still very, very into that. The food plate, eat the porridge for
yeah,
breakfast, finish rye bread, potatoes. Every meal has got to have some of these like carbohydrates in it. So I got pushback at that stage from my wife. So I didn't have the gumption to kind of force through that and try a low carb diet. But basically, it got to February this year, and I was kind of struggling with my weight, to be honest. I'm 59 now, so it's like much harder as you get older. I've got a
yeah,
bad knee from playing football, so it's that option of, I know they say you can't outrun a bad diet, but I just used to do loads and loads of exercise, and whatever I
mm,
took in calorific wise. I would just exercise until it had burnt off. But you know, once you get to my age, it's like quite difficult to do that. So I was like coming up to like 100 kilos, which was like, you know, I'm 6'2", so like whatever that is, 185 or something like that. And I was like, I was sort of desperate. I was desperate. I thought, like, because also the other thing as well as this high carb diet and the dietary advice that the medical establishment gives of low fat, high carb, you know, just cut out cheese and eggs and meat and all the food that feeds you up. So you're just always hungry. And when I had tried to lose weight using that method, you'd have a bit of success, but I'd be climbing up the wall. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I'd be so hungry. So I was watching this auditing video, this guy who kind of like basically holds the police to account. And he was just talking incidentally about this bodybuilder bloke in Britain called Eddie Abu. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I've heard of him, yeah. I've seen a bit
He's
of
quite
him.
He's quite funny. He's quite funny, and he's got a good gift for communication. So he's done very well with promoting Carnivore just because his communication skill set is very, very good.
I agree.
And so he mentioned this Eddie Abu guy. So I'd actually prayed to God. I'm a Christian, so I'd prayed to God, like, God, please, can you help me with this? And this video with that mentioned this Eddie Abu guy popped up a couple of weeks after I prayed to God and asked him for some help. So, and he talked about the carnivore diet. So then all of the other stuff starts flashing back into my memory, you know, about David Unwin. And there was another guy called Asim Malhotra who talked about how this link between cholesterol and heart disease is bunk. If you've not seen any of his stuff, I'll maybe send you an email over, Felix.
Yeah, definitely.
It's worth investigating. He's actually done some very, very good work trying to expose the dangers of statins. So I went on, cutting a long story short, I went on carnivore, or more accurately, ketovore. So I just cut out bread, pasta, rice, you know, and all the other biscuits, crisps, chocolate, you know,
the worst stuff,
the worst stuff in around about early February. And we're now in early September. Yeah. And, you know, I'm like, yesterday I was like 86 kilos and something, you know, so.
Yeah, that's good. Good transformation.
Yeah. And also the other big thing as well is the ability now I've got to fast. Because there was this other guy called who was he called now? He was another British guy, a GP, celebrity kind of guy, who died recently in Greece in quite mysterious circumstances. Can't remember what his name is now.
Yeah. I heard of that as well. Yeah, I think my grandmother had followed him for a bit or something.
Yeah, well, he recommended intermittent fasting, but he didn't say anything about low carb. So I think he was setting people up to fail, because I tried intermittent fasting. You know, this what do they call it?
Yeah, 16/8 is pretty popular. Yeah, 5-2. Yeah, so you fast 2 days of the week. Yeah.
Well, it never worked for me because I'd have the self-discipline to fast for 2 days a week, but then the other 5 days I'd feel so hungry, and I'd eat so much.
I've had exact same experience. Yeah, it's easy. Like, you can go for a while, but everything else in your life kind of like crumbles when you do that. At least I've noticed for myself when I've been working and going to school, studying a lot. Like, it's possible to do it with discipline, but if you're eating carbs and you're not kind of running your fuel is not coming from fat, it's very hard to like do anything else in your life really that you just focus on like surviving, really.
Felix, when I've watched some of your videos, and I can't remember in which one it was, but you described how you felt that up until recently, your body just ran purely on sugars
Yeah.
that came into your body through either eating sugar or eating carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And that also was definitely me.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
body I wasn't fat adapted at all.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. I think that's the
initially,
case for many people. Yeah.
it is. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
In a way, I wish I knew about it when I was younger, when I was playing sport. I
Yeah.
used to play football, and then this other weird game called cricket, which
Yeah.
Finns always think is like croquet, but it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they're just probably taking the Mickey, which Finns would never do that, would they? They've never used
Yeah.
dry humour to like.
Yeah.
but
Definitely. Yeah.
but because when you're just burning sugar, you have these highs and lows, don't you?
100%. Yeah.
So when you're fat adapted, as we are now, you don't really you don't feel hungry at all, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like before I remember when I was on a very high carb diet and also drinking a bunch of like coffee and caffeine on top of that. I remember like I could have very very high energy levels for 20 minutes. I could be very hyped.
Yeah,
I had taken some pre-workout. I was maybe going to the gym or I was very excited for something. And then after that just go down in a slump and be there for the rest of the day. And I think right now I don't get those same highs anymore. So kind of when I look at some of my friends or my brother, for example, like at times they're like hyped up. They are like
yeah,
full of energy and stuff. And in a way, um, I kind of think to myself that, oh, I wish that I would have the same high, but the crash always follows. The
yeah,
crash
yeah, yeah,
always follows. And I think like in the long term, it's a lot better to just be stable throughout the day. And
yeah,
I've just noticed that it's so much better to not have these highs and then crash because you can't be high all the time. There's no diet. It's not possible to be high on energy all the time. It will always come down, and I think that is really one of the best things on carnivore. You have this stable energy level throughout the day. You're
that's
very
it.
calm. It's very
That's it.
peaceful, and your mind is
Yeah,
very clear as well. I think it's fantastic when you really get on it, and also like I started mostly because of the energy effects and for the mental health. And I think, all of those together, your life really just completely changes.
yeah,
It's a very big thing. I can think so much clearer now. It's so much easier to just be more creative and have more energy throughout the day. So yeah, it's really a game changer. And I think that many people are just living their lives not knowing any better. They don't know how it actually feels or how you should feel on a day-to-day basis.
yeah. Because they don't know, do they? They've not had that
Yeah.
point of comparison. It's
Yeah.
like it would be the same for us. We didn't realize what it would be like to run on ketones
Yeah.
before we started this way of eating.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can also see it in professional sport. These crashes because if you watch a football match or whatever, they're eating these carbohydrate
Yeah.
gels, aren't they, in a water break and whatever.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not sure. I don't know if you like football, but
Yeah. Yeah.
There's this guy who plays for Man City called Haaland.
Yeah. Erling Holland. Yeah. Yeah. He's
Yeah,
like almost basically just carnivore. Yeah. Yeah. I've
yeah,
heard of him. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think that I think he started carnivore or eating very animal based when he was like 20. And he actually grew quite a lot after that. I think it was like close to like 6 centimeters or something, which is pretty amazing. You have,
yeah,
he was already quite tall and then started eating more of, I think it was more beef liver and beef heart, more animal
yeah.
products, and he all of a sudden grew. So that's pretty amazing. But yeah,
It is.
I've seen some of bit of him, and he's great. He's I think like the top scorer or something.
Yeah,
Um,
it's his athleticism and speed, and
yeah,
it's like the others. It's like an adult who's playing
yeah,
in a kids' football match, and
yeah,
Haaland's the adult.
Yeah,
and
he's a beast.
the kids are the ones who are sticking to the standard diet that's still being promoted by sports science, which is eating the
Yeah,
banana before the game.
yeah, yeah, and
Because
I think yeah.
after you,
Yeah. I was just going to say that I think also that like I've heard that especially from Australia and people playing rugby, there are quite a lot of carnivores there, but they can't really speak about it that much because they have all these food companies sponsoring their tournaments and matches. So I think that there are more carnivores than we think, but people just don't want to talk about it because there's so much money going around, and I think that's kind of a problem as well that some people know about all these health benefits, but they're afraid to talk. And I think
yeah,
that's the case also with a lot of like doctors and influential
yeah,
people that they might know what is right. Like I don't think like doctor, for example, like to have take a 7 year degree and get into medical school. It's very hard. You need to be very intelligent, and I think that most doctors are they have good intentions. I think they are good people, but to somehow not be able to think critically and not be able to figure out that, all right, cholesterol is not maybe that bad, and just prescribing lots of drugs isn't maybe the way. I think there's something very, very sketchy going on there, definitely.
yeah. I don't know. There's a lot to say there, Felix. First off, I think we've misunderstood intelligence.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah, in
people
that way. Yeah.
a lot of people think that if you've got a fast and accurate memory and you can
Mm,
do well in exams because of that,
yeah.
and you have no moral problem with just reciting a load of garbage,
Mm.
that
Yeah, that's
makes you
true as well.
intelligent. Because that's
That's
what
true as well.
I don't know about Finland, but certainly in England, the university entrance exams, that's what they're rewarding. They're rewarding people who've just got fast and accurate memories. What people that I call just repeater stations.
Yeah, I mean that's true in a way. Yeah, it's definitely true that just memorizing and being very good at particular problem solving on a piece of paper. That's maybe not the type of intelligence that is maybe needed or good if you're in a like influential position. So I definitely agree with that. Like, there's definitely that's a discussion for another time as well. Like, what is actually like intelligence and stuff.
Yeah,
But they definitely have some capacity to think, and you would think that I think most doctors are pretty good at
yeah.
problem solving and thinking critically, but not enough maybe on the things that they have been
I
taught.
think I think it might vary, Felix, because my frame of reference is the UK,
Yeah,
and I think the UK's
it
health
might be different.
system
Yeah,
is highly centralised. So doctors have very little autonomy in Britain. If a patient comes in and they report certain symptoms, or there's a test that says, oh, they've got XYZ, then GPs are obliged to follow these health protocols set out by the NHS centrally. And it's all computerized. And if somebody
okay.
rocks up and has a blood test and they've got high cholesterol, a little pop-up will appear on the GP screen and just basically say, this guy needs to be on statins. And if they don't prescribe statins, well, then the GPs are in trouble. So it's
Oh,
it's
yeah,
it's very centralized in Britain, and I think that's probably why. What can we call it? All the coercion with what we might call the medical experiment
yeah. I've heard you talk about it quite a lot. Yeah.
was a lot more severe in Britain. But
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
think and I think also just one last thing as well is that I don't think the majority of doctors in Britain anyway are good people, because they
Okay.
saw what went on.
Mm,
First of all, with the live action role play,
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
afterwards they didn't speak out when the medical experiment started and there was bad things happening. So
Yeah.
they kept their mouths shut
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
keep their.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's that is definitely a conversation to have in itself, like everything that's going behind the scenes and stuff. So um
But just
I
Felix,
think, yeah.
one more thing. So I think also the same principle applies to whether you want to call it paleo, keto, carnivore. The same conversation applies with that. I think it's inconceivable that doctors don't know about this, and if they
Yeah,
don't,
I agree. Yeah.
if they don't know that the body breaks down carbohydrates into glucose, and they
Yeah.
don't know that carbohydrate molecule is just a long chain of glucose molecules,
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
really
That.
deserve to be a doctor.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like that's pretty concerning to me as well, because I remember I had the exact same thing, that I have always had like natural pretty high cholesterol, and after I started eating more eggs, of course, like it shot up quite a bit. So it was maybe like it was maybe twice over the like higher end of the reference range. And
Yeah,
back last year, um my doctor told me that, yeah, you should 100% get a statin for this. So I took it for a while, because I didn't know better at the time.
yeah,
And
sure, sure.
the doctor, of course, is a pretty, I mean, in that case, for me, when you don't know any better, it's pretty hard to just say anything against it. But then, of course, I started like researching more into it, because I thought
Yeah,
to myself, like, I can't be this young and be taking a statin drug. It doesn't really feel good with me. And now I realize that um, there's something going on there, where I think that the doctor should 100% know that the yeah, exactly. I think doctors should 100% be aware of the risks, and um, at least like tell me that there are like risks, and because there are side effects of statin drugs, and it's not a drug that you want to be on for the rest of your life, really. And especially when you take a look at how important cholesterol is, like
yeah,
the
yeah,
brain,
yeah.
like your brain is mostly made of cholesterol, and everything from like hormone production to your cells, it's so
Yeah.
critical. So I think like right now I'm in the mindset that higher cholesterol is probably better if you're metabolically otherwise healthy, and if you're not feeding yourself a bunch of carbs and sugars, that should be the case.
I don't know if it's the same in Finland. I would imagine it is, but there's been, and I know people will say correlation doesn't equal causation,
Yeah.
but in Britain there's been an increase in the amount of statins prescribed, and then an increase in the number of people suffering from dementia, often quite
Yeah.
early onset.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what do statins do? They reduce the stuff that your brain's made of.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. It's so critical for many things. All right. I must see.
Just one thing, but before we move on, about
Yeah.
about the football and the physios and stuff.
Yeah.
I think another element of it is that people are often stuck in double down mode. So, like, I'm sure there are sports scientists in football who are looking at Haaland and what he's eating.
Mm. Yeah.
So why aren't other people switching to this way of eating? Why
Yeah.
are they basically laughing at Haaland and his, you see all these articles about
Yeah.
mocking what he eats. So
Yeah.
why is that? Well, I think it's like, no, they don't like admitting that they've made a mistake, because
Yeah.
that means admitting liability, that they've been
Mm.
advising in their job,
Yeah.
they've been advising people under their care to eat the wrong types of food. So that I think that also explains why why none of them have had a road to Damascus moment.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's also a problem, that if you've been, for example, a doctor, or you've been in some sort of influential position your whole life, and you've been teaching a way of life or eating for your whole career, it's pretty hard to then switch from that, because then you're basically admitting that you have done everything to this point completely wrong. And especially all people talking about plant-based being so good for you, you're basically doing a 180 switch. So
Yeah. It's
I
a bit,
definitely understand it's a hard situation to be in.
Felix, you're studying some economics, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a bit like somebody who's uh, been teaching Keynesian economics for like
Yeah.
30 odd years. It's a failing paradigm. It doesn't work,
Yeah.
but they're not going to admit that. They're just going to keep on teaching Keynesianism, because if they stopped and said, well, this is wrong, well, then they just destroy their own credibility. So they just double down on the lies.
I think, I mean, that's, I definitely understand if you're in that kind of position, but it's also very selfish, because in that moment, when you realize that what you've been teaching is wrong, then after that, you're just being evil in a way, not teaching the right stuff, especially when it's about health and people getting all these diseases and getting sick. It's very immoral, in my opinion. But yeah, hopefully with time, more people will change.
Finland's in a better position because, in my opinion, standards of morality in Finland are much higher, far higher than in Britain. There's more decent people here than there are in Britain. People in Finland are less likely to steal other people's stuff, tell lies. There's still a lot of honour in Finland that if you say something as a Finn, it's important that you deliver on what you've said.
100%.
Finland, but
I can't agree. I can't like comment on how it is in Britain, but I definitely agree. Like having traveled the world a little bit, I definitely like respect Finnish people. I think that very many decent people here, and I think that's a great thing, really living here as well. I wanted to touch on a few of the like recommendations. I've been looking at the Nordic nutrition recommendations of 2023. It kind of goes into what we've been talking about here, but I just want to bring this up because I think it's kind of unbelievable what these recommendations are. Last year, I think these are basically for the Nordic and Baltic countries, these recommendations. And the recommendations to people is that you should aim to eat more cereals. Whole grains are recommended due to their health effects as well as the environmental impacts, and aim to get at least 90 grams a day of whole grains. That is one of the things. And then a daily dose of about 500 to 800 grams from different vegetables, berries, fruits would be good. And then, of course, they recommend low-fat dairy. And you should also like minimize dairy. And I think the most kind of ironic thing here is that, or I don't know, it's kind of sad actually, is to limit the weekly amount of red meat to at most 350 grams. So 350 grams per week, and you should instead eat a bunch of grains and like plants essentially. I think it's like it's hard to really like comprehend that this is like really the recommendations, and I've looked at different recommendations throughout the years here in Finland and Nordics, and the amount of meat is going down every year, and the amount of plants and grains you should eat is going up. And what has happened? Well, we all know that every year more people are getting more disease and are getting more sick. So what are your takes on this? How is it possible that this is the case, that like all these health recommendations are just at least from our opinion just totally wrong? And yeah, how have we ended up here?
Okay, so the first one is, as we were talking about before, Felix, is that the first explanation to this is that the medical establishment in Finland and the vast majority of doctors in Finland are ignorant of basic biochemistry. That's one option, isn't it? That they just don't know. They don't know about ketosis. They don't know that carbohydrates break down into glucose. They don't know that heart disease is really related to excessive sugar consumption. So that's one option. It's just basic ignorance. It's a mistake. The other option is kind of more sinister, which is, UN Agenda 21, that the people that appoint our puppet politicians believe they're Malthusians. They believe that there are too many people on the planet, especially expensive old people who claim pensions but don't produce anything anymore.
Yeah.
or add to GDP or whatever, and they want to reduce the population. So how do you do that? Well, you just basically feed them a non-species specific diet. You know, it's like
Yeah.
feeding dog chocolate to kill it.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
That's the other explanation, and then coupled with that is that many doctors must know that this is happening. You know, when they prescribe statins or they prescribe diabetes medication, and rather than things getting better, it gets worse. Well, you know, they're going along with things, aren't they? Because they want to keep their jobs, and they know that if they speak out, they'll get fired. I don't know if you remember this, but there was a bloke a doctor in Rauma, who spoke out about the medical experiment, and
I
he
haven't
got
heard of it,
fired.
actually.
He got fired. It was in our local paper, Satakunnan Kansa.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's. I mean, that's a quite big problem. Like, if you can't speak freely, especially, I think. I mean, in medical industry, it's been kind of the same way for a long time, but you should still be able to think critically, because, I mean, the things we're doing right now is clearly not working. So there's definitely something that is wrong. So I think it's more important than ever that people are just thinking for themselves, thinking critically. And ironically, it's harder to think critically when you're fed this very bad diet. So it's kind of a very negative like loop there, because
that's it.
Yeah, because when you're fed a very bad diet, you have a hard time thinking, and it takes a lot of energy to really go against the grain and think critically. So that will also make you more likely to just follow along and not really question what is going on. And yeah,
I think that, I don't know about whether you've noticed this link as well, Felix. Is that what I found is that the people that were thinking critically about the live action role play and the medical experiment, they've also been more likely to be receptive to Carnivore.
Yeah, I've actually noticed that.
Yeah, and then going back to the diet thing is, I think there's a lot of diabetes in Finland, and that's down to this kind of criminal health advice. But then what's really interesting is that a lot of old Finns, their diet was pretty good. You know, they were eating lots of meat, pork. They were hunting as well, like hunting elk and deer, and they were eating fish. Fishing is still very popular in Pori. There's a lot of oldies that are still eating, frying in animal fat. And these people, they're all skinny as rakes and sharp as tacks, you know.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think, sorry, Felix, after you.
No, I was going to a different topic. Just go ahead.
No, I was saying that what I was going to say was that the likes of us, we've got to try to spread this information. But the big question is, how do we do it? And I think one option is just we be the change that we want to see. So other people might notice, like, oh, look, you're looking well, Felix. And then you can then go into like what you're doing and maybe ask. It's similar to the medical experiment. I found the best way to try to get at people is ask them questions.
So I think that is the best way.
You know, when you were at school at Lukio, right? Did you you did basic chemistry, didn't you? Yeah. Right. So did you ever do this test where certainly I did. They got us to chew a piece of bread. So carbohydrates exposed to saliva. We then put it in a test tube. And then we put some of this thing in called Benedict solution. And Benedict solution goes blue when it detects sugars. So when you first put the solution in, it was like clear, if my memory serves me right. And then you kind of like heated it up a little bit, jiggled it around. The saliva broke down the carbohydrates and it turned and turned it blue. So you could ask people about that. Tell me about. Do you know what happens to carbohydrates in your body? Ask
Yeah.
people basic questions like that. Do you know
Yeah.
what the difference is between a carbohydrate molecule and a glucose molecule?
Yeah.
Ask them how do you know how your body actually can create energy, and see if they know about ketosis. Because I think that's the thing is certainly, like, for me, I can get a bit a bit, what's the word? A bit passionate about things. So if I
Yeah.
go a bit hard, it's counterproductive. They just think wacko conspiracy theorist. But
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
ask them questions and then I just refuse to answer them, I'll say, oh, just go and look it up. It's like,
Yeah.
with the global climate warming change, I'll like
Yeah.
say to them, like, oh, so do you know what percentage of the Earth's atmosphere that's carbon dioxide?
Yeah.
You know what it
Yeah.
is? And they'll go like, oh, 60%. And I say,
Yeah.
I'll say, I think you need to look that up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
won't even, I refuse to tell them, because if I tell them, they'll think he's lying, right? But if I
Yeah.
say, oh, go and look it up, you might be surprised.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. And I
that
think,
might be,
yeah, and I think they're more likely to also change their mind if they actually look up themselves. Because if you're just, because it's the same thing, like if someone tries to kind of challenge your beliefs, you kind of have this natural instinct to just refuse it. But if you kind of discover it yourself, you're much more likely to actually believe it. So I think that's great. That's a very fantastic strategy, actually, to, instead of just having a rant and talking down on other people, asking question, that's a pretty good strategy to really get them to think. Because I think the more people can think critically for themselves, I think um, the faster or the more effective it is really for everyone to find out what is actually going on, what is the truth really here. So I think that's great. And also to touch on the like environmental things, because I think that's a that's also a very interesting argument, when people, especially I know especially in the Nordics and in Finland, it's, and in Europe overall, it's very, that's a quite big thing of the like plant push, and everything, that it's good for the environment, and we're sold this picture that, if everyone would go vegan, then every, like, the planet would be saved and stuff. And exactly, I think that there are lots of problems with that as well. And I just think, like, logically for a second, it's, when you go into a supermarket, there are like 60,000 different products, which 99% of them are all plant based. They're all wrapped around in plastics. And just think of the transportation and the manufacturing of everything. That can be very good for the environment. And then you throw away about like 30% of all plants that are produced and stuff. And yeah, I'm very skeptical of beef and eating a carnivore way really being that bad for the environment as well. Do you have
it's
any
good for the
thoughts on
environment.
that? Yeah,
It's good for the environment, because
yeah,
when
it's natural.
the cows eat the grass, they convert it into high quality protein for us to eat, which is our optimum diet. And then
Yeah,
they also poop waste
exactly.
product
Yeah,
out, which fertilizes the land.
yeah,
Like, I don't know, in England, in medieval times, they used to have this thing called the 3-field system. So, like, in one year, they would maybe grow wheat. Year
yeah,
two, they would put cattle on it, and the cattle would like refertilize the field. Year three, they would grow clover or something, give the field another
yeah,
chance to kind of come back to optimum fertility, and then they grow
yeah,
wheat again.
yeah.
But what's happening now in Britain especially is that farming's
Mm,
become highly industrialized. So they
yeah,
don't have animals pooping on the ground, so they have to use uh, artificial fertilizers.
yeah. And then definitely, and then also, if you think on the back end, you know eating a very plant-based diet and not eating the important animal products and beef, um, that will in the long run also cause a lot of problems for humans. So more humans will be uh, be sick, have diseases. And when
Yeah.
you think about all the resources that go into that,
Oh man,
it's unbelievable the
unbelievable.
cost, because
Yeah,
that is the biggest cost, really, especially in Finland, and
yeah,
basically the whole Western world. Like
yeah.
people are getting older, they're getting more sick, and like right now we don't have enough taxpayer money to pay off of all the problems, especially related to health, that we have today. So if you
Mm,
just think of that standpoint, it's a lot better for in every possible way to just eat meat, eat a bunch of meat, be healthy. It's good for the environment as well. Uh, I don't really see any good argument for why we wouldn't eat meat, other than the food companies can profit a bunch of it.
no.
Like, that is the only reason I see that we are in this position right now.
The good news, Felix, what I would say is that at least in Finland, meat is widely available in shops.
Yeah,
It's also, compared to Britain, it's also ridiculously cheap. You know, like for example, you're in Helsinki, but you
yeah,
know, you can get a kilo of pork for €7.
yeah, yeah,
So it's cheap. It's
yeah,
actually cheap.
definitely. Yeah,
And then on top of that, you know, out in the countryside, a lot of people have guns, so
yeah,
they'll go and shoot an elk during the elk hunting
yeah,
season, or deer,
yeah,
and that's like another level above, isn't it? And
yeah. Yeah.
that's free food.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm actually planning on going to hunt for the first time, like this fall. I'm really looking forward to that. I think that is the most carnivore thing you really can do, to go and hunt your own food. I think that's great. That's going back to the basics, going back to
Brilliant,
our ancestor
brilliant,
roots. Yeah, I think I'm
brilliant.
very excited for that.
You have to make a
Um,
video of that.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I will 100% make a video of that. All
I,
right,
I know
but
people. I know people that do it. You know, and
yeah,
I've not
it's
been
good.
trained. You see, I'm. You know, all Finnish guys, they know how to shoot a gun, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Because of the
I mean,
army.
yeah, we've been in the military. Yeah, I was also served for 1 year, so I've had some practice on that as well.
Which is good.
Yes,
Which is
yeah,
good.
yes, definitely. All right, but I think we'll wrap up here. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you
you're
very much
welcome.
for,
I've really enjoyed it.
yeah, and probably in the future, I might be able to come on your channel, and let's
Yeah,
do some more interviews. Very
yeah,
interesting stuff. There's a lot of different things to talk about, and I think this is topic. I mean, different topic we could talk about the whole day, really. So
yeah.
this has
We've
been
just
great.
scratched the surface.
Yeah,